That's
Good
Judge
evening.
Anderson, ain't it?
Welcome to the Board of Trustee Workshop Session dated January 28th, 2026. Like to call the roll. Karen, please.
Trustee Bottomley.
Here.
Trustee Broderick.
Present.
Trustee Garcia again.
Present.
Trustee Harris.
Present.
Trustee Lee. Trustee Morales.
Present.
Trustee Bishop.
Present.
Trustee Bazinski.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Item 1.3, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1.4, Public Comments. Karen, do we have any public comments?
We do not.
Item 1.5, the Administration of Trustees Oath of Office. Brian Copeman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The state legislature recently passed an amendment to the Public Community College Act, which requires that all trustees now by statute have to be sworn in before they can embark on their duties as trustees. So it's unclear in the statute whether that applies to sitting trustees or just newly elected ones, so why take a chance? I am honored and have the pleasure of introducing Justice John Anderson, who is a justice on the 3rd District Appellate Court here in Illinois. I also had the pleasure of practicing before him when he previously sat as a circuit judge in Will County. I don't know if he would call that a pleasurable experience, but I enjoyed practicing before him. Justice Anderson is also a proud former student of Joliet Junior College.
Awesome.
And Dr. Newell introduced to the state of the college yesterday a wonderful Roots and Branches video featuring Justice Anderson. So with that, I would ask Justice Anderson if he would come forward and administer the oath.
Brian, thank you for putting the oath here so I didn't have to chase it down.
I can't take credit for that.
Does everyone want to take the oath together?
Yeah.
All right, could you all stand up for me?
We did the oath,
Did you listen to what he just said?
even though I'm sorry, I wanted to.
We need to stand up and give the oath.
Even if we did,
There's a
we're gonna have an official judge.
There's been a change in the legislation, and your lawyer is just being a good lawyer and suggested that we take the oath. Just
Even though we took it before, got it.
Correct.
all right. All right, if we're ready, everyone, please state your name. Do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
Swear.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office as a member
of the office as a member
of the Board of Trustees
of the Board of Trustees
of Joliet Junior College,
of Joliet Junior College,
Illinois Community College District 525,
Illinois Community College District 525,
according to the best of my abilities.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Brian, do you need me to sign any of these, or do you have?
I'm gonna ask, did you have,
They all have them.
yeah, if you all have yours, if you will sign and date them.
And then do you need me to sign them as well? I don't see them.
Sure, it's no problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen.
Once the written oaths are signed, then they are to be filed with the clerk of the board. I'm sorry, Secretary of the board.
Item 1.6, the approval of September 24th, 2025 workshop minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Are we ready to vote? Trustee Morales.
Yes.
Trustee Harris.
Yes.
Trustee Bottomley.
Yes.
Trustee Broderick.
Yes.
Trustee Garcia Guillen.
Yes.
Trustee Bishop.
Yes.
Trustee Bazinski.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 2 under new business, 2.1, the three-year financial plan. Dr. Nanul?
Thank you, Chairman. Just want to extend gratitude to Justice Anderson. Great to see him back on campus here. And trustees, what I'll do is, as Brian referenced, the world premiere of Justice Anderson's Roots and Branches video happened yesterday. And
Very good.
boy, it was good. It was so good. And it will, once it's out there, it's going to resonate with our students because not all of our students come to us ready for the Crawford Honors College. In fact, the vast majority don't. So shout out to Justice Anderson, and here's to all the scrappy, smart kids. Yeah, well, you have them in your phone. You show them to me every time we talk. All right, so Chairman, first want to take a moment to thank the Finance Committee for their partnership in this. I'll have a statement that will be slightly different, and the presentation that the Board of Trustees will see today will be different than what we presented the Finance Committee, but has been informed by the Finance Committee's feedback. And so it's far more detailed than the committee received, but I think as a board, my hope is you'll find great value in not only the technical aspects of today's presentation, but the context around it as well. And I'm especially thankful that the entire board is receiving this three-year financial plan. I do recall last year with some of our new trustees having been sworn in after this board workshop, did not have as much context, as the rest of the board. So I'm thankful for that. So bear with me 1 second. I've got a statement to read. We're going to do this in 3 steps, this part. I've got a statement to read. Dr. Farmer's got an incredible presentation, and then we'll get into some of the more technical aspects. So thank you again, trustees, for your leadership and your partnership. And I want to thank the board retroactively for the approval of the FY26 budget, right, which allowed us to advance some of our key strategic priorities, all while honoring our commitments to our students, our employees, and of course, the entire JJC community. Now, as we turn our attention to the development of the FY27 budget, I want to underscore that today is really just the beginning of a 5-month process. We commit that it will be inclusive and transparent, and the feedback we get from all of you today will directly inform how this budget takes shape in the months ahead. So we're entering this cycle with some uncertainty at both the federal and the state levels, and particularly around funding streams related to financial aid and, of course, grant support as well. Now, in response to that uncertainty, we will actively explore every option to control costs, to improve efficiency, and to ensure that every single dollar the Board of Trustees approves maximizes the impact we have on our students. And our commitment remains firm. This year, we will deliver JJC's 54th consecutive balanced budget. And while this year will be tighter, our focus will be on making smart, strategic choices that uphold our values to advance student success. And JJC's budget process, as a reminder to the college community, continues to be award-winning, nationally recognized for transparency, for quality, and our consecutive unqualified audits reflect Chairman Strong governance and fiscal discipline. The FY27 budget will fully reflect our collective bargaining obligations, statutory requirements, and the strategic direction set by this board. We look forward to the budget development process internally to ultimately present a responsible, future-focused, and a mission-driven budget that strengthens JJC and the communities we serve. And with that, it is my pleasure, Chairman, to invite to the podium, Dr. Yolanda Farmer.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Moore. I'm here already.
Yes, you are.
Can everyone hear me now? Very good. So thank you once again, Dr. Namuo. And before we get started, I want to take a moment to have Trustee Morales, Trustee Bottomley, and Trustee Bishop to stand. If you could stand for a moment. Yeah, a lot of standing. I want to take a moment. In Board of Trustees, I want you to thank your Finance Committee because we presented the financial plan to this team, and they had great questions. Questions that made us be more reflective as we move forward with the budget process. So I want to thank you, Trustee Morales, for your leadership. Trustee Bottomley, thank you for your tough questions. And also Trustee Bishop. Tonight, we are prepared to respond to many of your questions as we move forward with the financial plan. So thank you for that. Just want to take a moment, give them a round of applause just to say thank you. So Board of Trustees, if you recall, Dr. Namuo has already communicated this. Over the past several years, the board, your president, this executive leadership team, everyone wave, have engaged in very thoughtful, deliberate conversations about the changing financial landscape in higher education. It is impacting all of us, community colleges, four-year institutions, government, etc. And the long-term implications of what we call our enrollment cliff. If you recall, Board of Trustees, we've had some ongoing conversations about the enrollment cliff, and that presentation was shared by Dean Morris, who's here today. But staying true to our mission and vision at JJC, tonight we will present a financial plan shaped by a very clear assessment of where we stand here at JJC today and also in the future. I want to take a moment to once again commend Dr. Namuo for delivering an exceptional state of the college yesterday. A round of applause for our president for that. You know, Dr. Namuo reminded us of the students that we serve. So I'm not going to go through every single aspect of the presentation regarding the students that we serve because he did such a good job yesterday, but I will carry the message forward. We know that most of our students here at Joliet Junior College are part-time, and we know why they're part-time. Many of them are working, supporting their families, and the list goes on and on. But we also recognize that 21% are full-time. But the most important aspect that I want to call to your attention tonight is that 88% of our student body is under 25. And that is critical for us to ponder. Most of you know this already, that our student body reflects a very rich diversity in our community, with our Hispanic Latinx student population standing at 23%. In the past, as Dr. Namuo indicated, it was close to 30%. And in light of what's happening with the federal government, of course, we're seeing a decline in that area. But followed very closely by our African American students, standing at 12%. But regardless, we have a very, very diverse student population here at JJC. Trustee Morales, you wanted us to respond to you regarding financial aid. One important aspect about Joliet Junior College is our support. We support the students with the greatest need, and we do that very well. 1 in 3 students here at JJC receive some type of financial aid support through MAP, Pell, and even loans. And over 17,000 students, correct, Dr. Brooks, complete the FAFSA form. We have been very strategic in reaching out to our high schools and educating them about completing that form because we want students to know about the opportunity for financial aid to secure their education. That's important to us. But most importantly, I want to stress that although we also have financial aid, we have a great partnership with our foundation area. We have awarded over 1.3 million scholarships to our students. And again, those scholarships directly reducing the financial barrier for our students. That's important to us. And I don't know if you know this important part. Textbooks are expensive. I think it was you, Trustee Broadwick. We had conversations about textbooks, right? And our continued commitment to lowering the cost for students. So of course, the college implemented our digital assets program that started in 2022. And you can see the numbers here. Over 6,000 plus students utilize digital assets, over 14,000 classes. That's a partnership with our faculty. And you can see the total cost savings with textbooks. This is critical. A significant milestone for us at JJC. Now here is the reality. And this is where we will have some courageous conversations. We have a changing funding model. We all know this. While we continue to be a college of excellence, we believe in that, we continue to navigate challenges related to state funding, the enrollment cliff, and other external pressures. If you can see here from some of these graphs, state support per student has declined nationally since 2010 and will continue to decline. Instructional and benefit costs. I'm sure you'll hear from VP Kissel and Jeff Heap about the rising annual costs in this area. And of course, the federal pandemic stabilization ended in 2024. But also, I want to highlight the changing economic environment is real, and it's real for us here. We have been very proactive, however, as an administration, planning responsibly, aligning our resources with our mission, and preparing for what will lie ahead. But 15%, Illinois high school student graduates projected to decline by 2029. Again, that's the enrollment cliff we've been talking about since 4 years ago, right, Bob? And then also the community college sector enrollment nationally is down since 2019. It is truly a defining moment for community colleges. It's just not impacting JJC, but this is across the nation. Public college funds has dropped in the last decade. You can look at the percentage. Operating costs continues to decline since 2020. And then, of course, the Midwest College spec enrollment declines from the demographic cliff. But I will tell you, we have been very proactive. Although we are struggling through some of these challenges nationally and at the state level, we've been very proactive. You're probably wondering, why did Dr. Namua introduce 12 by 12 by 12? That was intentional because we knew right away that we would be faced with this enrollment cliff. This is a very success story for us at JJC. Our dual credit initiative and model has been recognized statewide and nationally. It's something that we should be very proud of, but most importantly, we were very proactive as a college community. And you also wonder about future wolves. Again, reaching down, not just to high school, but all to the middle school locations and students to provide ongoing support to introduce them to college at a very early age. Also, I would like to say as a college, we have invested intentionally in some of our very high demand, high wage programs. Most of you sitting on the board have voted for some of these programs and supported it, like respiratory, advanced welding, AI cloud integration, advanced cyber security, and the list goes on and on. We are being very proactive, and we are focused on providing high demand and high wage programs for our students. We don't want to graduate them into poverty. We want to graduate them into earning family sustaining wages. That is our commitment, that is our promise. Members of the Board of Trustees, you constantly ask, where is the investment? How are we investing in our students? Where our dollars go? They go to instructional and faculty quality. You'll notice from you'll notice from, I'm looking at Dr. Namul. Anything, Dr. Namul? Yes, jump in.
Sorry, Dr. Farmer. Oh, I see Trustee Broderick was taking a picture of the slide, so we'll provide.
Oh, absolutely, we will provide
Apologies.
this. Absolutely, I just want to make sure if you wanted to jump in here. Okay.
Sorry for the
All right, that's okay. So where are dollars going? And again, instruction and faculty support quality. You'll notice in our presentation, we'll talk a little bit about, personnel, that most of our funding is personnel because we are a people college. Advising, tutoring, we make great investments in advising, mental health, and also our workforce and transfer pathways. Regardless of our challenges, despite our challenges in the shift in facing higher education, we are graduating more students, and we are graduating students with more credits, and we are making sure that our students are earning more certificates. So I will tell you, we are doing something right here at JJC, regardless of the challenges. So, Board of Trustees, as you know, we have a very strong track record of success. We haven't raised tuition in a long time, and that was specifically under Dr. Namul's leadership. In 2023, that's when we had our first increase. But you will see in VP Kissel and Jeff's presentation that we are below the regional and state averages when you look at the tuition. So I can't wait for us to share more information with you today. So once again, this recommendation is very measured. It's responsible, it's an adjustment, and we recognize that. But we are seeking a $3 per credit tuition increase, $36 per year, $1 per week that will impact most of our students. But I will tell you, as Dr. Namul indicated, through our comprehensive financial aid resources, including our grants, our scholarships, we remain committed to making sure that we provide accessible support for our students. So once again, how we will use these funds, we will preserve our instructional sections. That's important to us. We'll sustain our student services, advising, mental health, career services. We'll maintain our workforce capacity, and most importantly, I know we've had ongoing conversations about enrollment, but I cannot wait for us to have more conversations about retention and also completion. I'm excited about that. And last but not least, Board of Trustees, this tuition increase, we've talked about this in the past. We presented it in the 2025 financial plan. And today is an opportunity for us to continue to have a discussion about this opportunity for our students and most importantly for our college community. So let's protect access, let's sustain excellence, and let's strengthen our workforce pipeline by this request. And I understand that you must honor your community trust. I know some of you indicated that you really don't want to move forward with a tuition increase. But I will say to you today to consider it. in light of everything that we are responding to in higher education today, tomorrow, and in the future. So at this time, I would like to invite VP Kissel and Jeff Heap to the podium that will do a deeper dive into the financial plan and share additional data points with you this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Farmer, for that introduction. It was great. We're hoping that this is going to be a very interactive conversation today. So please, stop us, ask questions. We have a lot of data to present to you today. So if you have any questions, just let us know. We want to make it a conversation. Thanks, Jeff.
Good evening. Tonight, for my portion, we'll give a brief update of where FY26 is trending. We'll talk about some of the cost-saving measures over the past few years. And then we'll look at kind of the assumptions for revenue and expenditures for 27, and then kind of take those out into 28 and 29 to see what the trend looks like. For the current year, our operating revenues, tuition, basically paid credit hours, while the spring semester is not final and there's still more late starting classes, we're running slightly below on our total credit hours. State revenue, we had a combined budget of 10.85 million. The allocation for credit hour and career and tech ed hours, CTE, was 10.5 million. So we were a little bit under budget there. And just at the end of last week, the state basically sent out notice that they weren't going to release that 2% they had held back. Now, that was never factored into the 10.5 million, but we will not receive that now. But on the other side, indirect grant revenue for some state grants, there's a couple of rather large Clean Energy Job Act grants that indirect revenue will exceed expectations by about 300,000, maybe even a little bit more than that. But overall, I think state revenue compared to budget is going to be real close for FY26. Property taxes, kind of talked about that back in November when we did the levy. Expected to be slightly over budget. That's primarily due to new construction in our district this past year. And then interest revenue, our budget was 4 million. We expect to meet that. The only thing that could change the number at year end is under government accounting rules, we have to mark investments to market value, even if we hold to maturity. It doesn't change how much we earn over the time period. It just changes when we recognize the revenue. On the expense side, we're trending under budget. A couple of full-time faculty have been vacant all year. A couple more retired in December. We hired 2 or 3 more to start this January. Staff vacancies about 700,000 to date. Expect that number to be a little bit higher by year end. That's where we're currently at. Adjunct faculty overloads, we're trending in line with budget. What'll determine that will be spring sections, and those will start hitting payroll here in probably about another week. Then contractual supplies, utilities, travel, we're trending under budget, probably about 1.5 million, kind of in line with what it has done the past couple of years. But as we kind of boil that down, and to maintain our fund balance reserve, last year was 33.2%, kind of rounding, rough 33.4. Still expect a bit of a surplus transfer, probably around 3.2 million. But that is down from last year. Last year's was a little over $7 million. The past few years, we've had some expenses have been growing a little bit higher. There's less vacancies. We've had a few revenue sources that kind of exceeded expectations. Not really seeing any revenue sources in the current year that are expected to exceed budget by much. So it's kind of getting, like I said, stuff's going to be a little bit tighter going forward. From a cost saving side, I know there's a couple questions on benefits over the past few years. There's been a few things added, especially around RX prescriptions. While it's not our highest spend, it has the largest increase percentage on it the last few years, especially around specialty drugs. Implemented Save On SP and exclusive Smart 90. It was trying to get a little better control on the specialty drugs. Switched to RX benefits from kind of Express Scripts for expectation of larger rebates this past year. And then some preventive programs that hopefully will pay off a little bit more longer term. Virta diabetes to help reduce some long-term diabetes costs. And then Hinge Health around muscular skeletal support program that hopefully can help people avoid future surgeries. And then the last one, and I didn't reference it on here, just recently had a tweak to the HMO network that is actually going to save us probably about $90,000 on an annual basis. From facility side, especially the last 10, 15 years, there's been a lot of emphasis with our deferred maintenance and as we replace stuff for energy efficiency. Grants, any rebates that we can get, any lights that are, a lot of LED lights put in the facility to replace the old incandescent bulbs. Boiler replacement 3 years ago, 5 years ago, it all runs together at a certain point. Air handling units, the bulk of the original ones on campus, majority have been replaced now. And then, like I said, the solar panels out on the east side of campus. And like I said, the last couple buildings had geothermal heating and cooling in them. Compared to 20 years ago, the college's square footage on the roof has doubled from 2007 to current. Our energy costs have not doubled. Close, but not quite doubled. And that's in 2007's dollars to today's dollars. That's even though I'm sure everybody realizes your electric rates per kilowatt are a lot higher today than they were 10, 15 years ago. So, it has reduced our energy usage considerably over the years.
And many of these cost-saving measures were provided through grants. So there are things that were funded through outside sources or through the state of Illinois. For example, a significant amount of our air handlers that we presented to you were funded through the state. We had to pay 20%, they paid 80%. So we've been really fortunate that the team has been able to, generate this type of cost measure savings through grants.
From our bonds, and a few years ago, but back in 2019, we refunded our 2009 referendum bonds, resulted in present value savings over $8.5 million. Basically, that savings goes right back to the taxpayers. Can't talk anymore. The alternate revenue bonds, we refinanced the bulk of those in 21. At present value savings of about $8.6 million. And the capital assessment fee is the funding source for those. A lot of that, the savings helped get that debt service in line with where credit hours and the revenue generated from them was. We were running a shortfall at that point. And then a little bit from a historical basis, just the last 10 years, what the college's tuition and fee rates were and what the percentage increase was compared to ICCB, the state average. And then over at the far right, added in what the consumer price index increase was. The first couple of years on there, 2017 and 2018, are rather large increases. We were dealing with the state of Illinois not being able to pass a budget, did not have a clue what we were going to get in funding, along with some new buildings coming online. So we had operating costs hitting us with the city center campus, the Romeoville expansion, and then the event center. But as the state got a little more in line and we could adopt a budget and we knew what to expect, it helped basically offset tuition increases for quite a few years after that.
But don't forget what we did. The debit cards.
Oh, yes. Forgot about that. As part of that, with that tuition increase, when the state finally did get us the budget, we refunded, I don't remember what it was, 2 or 3 million back to the students? Yeah,
We gave them debit
forgot about
cards.
that.
We
That was
also-
not, I understand it was a great thing to do, but
we were the
from an
only board that
administrative
did
side, it was not fun.
We were the only board that did it because we didn't want to see the tuition increase, and we agreed to do that.
Yeah, I forgot about that. But I mean, especially over the last 5, 6 years, there's really only been one tuition increase compared to the consumer price index. It's probably up 25%. Another way of looking at it is just our tuition rate. Now, this is not total fees, this is just our tuition rate. JJC's is 116, so we're basically the third lowest versus a state average of just under $144. And when you add in tuition and fees, we're at 151 versus a state average of just under $165. So we're still kind of in the bottom quartile. So as we move into kind of the projections for 27 through 29, this is kind of where we left off a year ago. This would have been, I don't know, the second or third to the last slide in last year's presentation, just showing what the numbers were going to look like. And for 27, we were projecting a bit of a deficit, being conservative on some of the revenue estimates, and factoring in a $3 tuition increase for 27 and 28 at that point. So as we dig into a little bit more of the details, for FY '27, projecting an overall increase to our operating budget of $3.9 million. Basically, that's 3.2%. Property taxes would be the biggest part of that. About 1.1% from new construction, which is about 325 million in new buildings. Consumer price index is 2.7% for next year's levy. But that 3.8% combined increase would be approximately 2.8 million. Debt service, while it's not part of operating, that is built into the bond resolution, and it's in the second to last, this will be the second to last year of that. That has a 6% increase built into it, just as an FYI. Comparing to basically the other community colleges up in northern, northeastern Illinois, we're at the lower end, the 5th lowest here. Over the years, between College Lake County, JJC, McHenry, Triton, we're all about the same tax rate. Bounce around a little bit who's above or below each year. It just depends on how the tax cap calculation comes out and what their assessed value increases compared to CPI each year. And as far as I know, DuPage and Oakton have always been slightly below everyone else. That hasn't changed in years. For the other revenue items, expect a small decrease in state revenue, trying to be conservative there. So base operating about 9.6 million. The career and tech ed grant budget at 750. Our allocation on an annual basis, it runs around 750 to 800,000, so it's not a big fluctuation on that. And then indirect revenue on state grants of 400,000. Interest income, project a small decrease. We've had two or three rate reductions from the feds now. So the budget would be dropped from 4 million to 3.75 million. In tuition revenue, with a $3 tuition increase and factoring an enrollment growth of 1%, Now, there's still may be a little adjustment to this number depending on where we end up on final credit hours for the current year. Would generate potentially about $1 million of additional funds. And then as referenced, this is what the tuition and fee rates would look like under the proposal with a $3 increase. That would basically be just below a 2% increase.
Jeff, if I may, I just want to make sure that I am understanding this correctly. Going back to slide 15, under our tuition revenue of projecting out to $1 million. So the $3 tuition rate increase while factoring in a growth of 1% totals about $1 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be about 600,000 from the tuition increase.
Okay.
And potentially up to another 400,000 on the 1% enrollment growth.
Okay. Thank you.
We have about 200,000 credit hours, paid credit hours.
I think Trustee Garcia had a question.
Yes,
sorry.
please. What about if we have this might be a question that you might have to take it back, but I can still ask. If we had an enrollment growth of, let's say, 2% or 3% and no tuition increase, what would that look like for tuition revenue?
I mean, in the surface, yes, it would probably make up for the rate increase. It would depend a little bit on the number of sections taught.
Correct.
Enrollment goes up. There's a fine line in there where, okay, you add students, okay, we gotta add one more section of a class. So then you have the instructor costs. It's one of those, at the end of the day, over the years, a lot of times tuition ends up kind of covering our direct faculty instructional costs. You know, salary, overload, adjunct pay. They've always kind of trended in line with each other.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Question. With the trend now going with online, and we see that in Dr. Farmer's presentation, she showed the decrease in, you know, the educational part of it. You look at that and online, because that seems to be what the theory of what's happening across the nation, and especially when we talk at our ICCTA meetings, they're seeing a decline in enrollment and more online. What's the fee structure if we see more online? And is there a difference in the cost assessments of online or where they appear here? Is there a difference? Because online,
Not really.
not really? So
I
you
mean,
still need,
We still have the same we still get the same revenue.
okay,
You still have instructor costs.
okay,
There's still an instructor of record on that section of that class.
okay.
So from a nuts and bolts, dollars and cents, there's no difference in the general ledger, I guess, or from my side. I'm forgetting something.
Software cost?
There is a course fee for those that kind of covers that.
There's a $35 course fee, but whether a faculty member teaches online or they teach face-to-face or hybrid, contractually it's the same, they earn the
Guys,
same
it's the same
salary.
way?
Yeah.
And then, if we're looking at the increase in certifications, because now you're hearing more of the families talking about, they don't want the 4-year or the 2-year, they want to get them into the workforce as quickly as possible, and so do the students. What does that do then to adjust to our budget situation if we see more certifications versus the 2 years?
Let me jump in on that one, Trustee Broderick. You raise an excellent point. Yesterday at the State of the College, I highlighted our growth in the number of certificates awarded.
Yeah, that's
and
what I saw, that's what I'm going back at.
Yeah, something I mentioned yesterday is that's directly in response to what you're hinting at is the needs of the employers in our community. So while you see the degrees awarded increase, you really saw the certificates increase. So What I want to offer here, and this is actually a pretty good segue to the second presentation that the board will receive today.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Not intentional, I'm sure, but still good nonetheless.
I'm glad we
is
talked earlier.
The federal government has made available another set of resources, a pool of resources for students who are seeking short-term credentials. For those involved in lobbying at all, you might have heard for many years we tried and lobbied hard to pass Workforce Pell.
Right.
Well, that's become a reality, and it's made it pass rules at this point. So we'll start to see the impact of federal financial aid supporting short-term programs, but we're ahead, right? We're ahead because we've already advanced in that area, and we've developed strategic strengths in the technical department.
Yeah, because
for example.
they just talked about that on the conference call this past Monday about those short-term
Workforce Pell,
workforce
yeah.
spells.
Yeah.
So that was very, enlightening to see that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Another way of looking is if we overlaid what the proposed rate would compared to the other community colleges, that it bumps us up a couple. I know both Karen and I are on listservs. We're seeing emails fly around.
Most colleges are increasing their tuition and fee rates. I have Moraine Valley is bringing their tuition up $3 for tuition, $1 for their tech fee. Oakton Community College, $4. Parkland, $7. We don't have all of them, but what's nice about this group is everybody shares this information. Elgin Community College, $10. Some of them are $9. Sandburg, Blackhawk, and I know they're not close to us, but everybody's facing the same conversation as increasing tuition across the board. It looks pretty close as they're coming in.
To give some context on our operating revenue as a percent of our budget, this is 2027 versus 2017. Over the last 10 years, basically property taxes make up a bigger percent of our operating revenue. State governments actually decreased slightly, 0.9%. Replacement tax increased a little bit. Tuition and fees has dropped from 33% down to just under 26. Interest has increased from next to nothing to about 3% of our operating budget. And then other transfers, those are very minor numbers. But we're seeing a little bit of a shift, especially with, over the years, interest income has helped us a little bit. While we've seen more dollars out of the state, it hasn't kept pace with inflation. And it's more falling on property taxes.
Well, Jeff, can you just remind the board and the college community, about CPPRT and maybe why things were a little bit better just a couple of years ago? The CPPRT windfall, let's call it.
Corporate personal property replacement tax, mouthful. It is a sharing by the state of basically corporate income taxes. You go back 6-7 years ago, the college normally received a little under $2 million annually. After COVID and all the stimulus funds, kind of corporate profits went through the roof. We went from receiving $2 million to receiving $6 million there for a couple of years. We could never get any straight answers of why it increased so much. We drug our feet a little bit, increasing our budget. It kind of helped contribute to some of the surpluses those years. We finally brought our budget up to a little over $3 million. I will say last year's, what we received was $2.9 million from the state. It's kind of come full circle back in to where it was trending. Now some of that, and you got to dig to find the information, they see the state there for a few years over allocated. So now they're fixing it. So they play with the formulas and they withhold it back. I think they're about done with doing that, but time will tell. But we're trending in line with about the $3 million budget we have. But you end up with receiving a lot of that money, especially this time of year through May. So. On the expense side, $3.9 million increase, primarily personnel. It's based 3 to 3.5% based on union, in line with union contracts. We are in these projections assuming $1 million in vacancy savings for 27. Healthcare, we're trending in line, if not a little bit better than expectations so far this year. Assume a 6% increase in healthcare costs for 27. And then right now, assuming no increase for kind of the other expenditures, materials, supplies, contractual, travel. Small increase for utilities, and then an allocation of $250,000 for strategic initiatives and funding the third year of the advisor model to add 4 advisors. From an object base, like I said, 78% is personnel, between salary and benefits. That percentage hasn't changed in a handful of years now. Other supplies, contractual, travel, 11%. Utilities, 3%. Capital is like $300,000 or $400,000, so it doesn't even show up as a percent. Transfers, a big chunk of that is funding deferred maintenance. We transfer it out of our O&M operation and maintenance to O&M restricted to put toward deferred maintenance. And then the other part of it is to fund some deficits for what the student activity fee covers. Because that $4 doesn't cover all of student activities and athletic costs, or athletic department. And then tuition waivers, that's basically grossing up for adult ed based on the hours and dual credit to what if it was full tuition rate. So increases revenue and increases expense, and that's to 0. So on a summary basis, we've kind of gone through everything for 27 now. For 28 and 29, honestly, similar assumptions. Not much difference from a state funding. New construction, a little at 1 to 1.1%. Assume 2.5% on the consumer price index. And then $3 tuition increase is factored in each year right now. Salary.
Each year?
Yes.
Each year?
Yes.
You said each year?
Yes. Annually.
3 each annually?
Yes. Salary and benefits, 3 to 3.5%. But at the end of 27, we have 3 contracts up at the end of 27?
I think it's police, food service.
Maybe 4.
And facilities. 4. 4.
We'll have some union contracts coming up at the end of 27. So those numbers could change. Benefits assume 6%, did factor in 2% more of an inflation on other, 4% utilities, and do factor in for an allocation of $250,000 for strategic initiatives.
Jeff, going back to when we saw, and I'm gonna put, because Alicia and I think some of us saw the old forecast when you guys were forecasting if we didn't do certain things a couple years ago. What changed that to all of a sudden now? Because we saw higher numbers back a couple years ago. And now all of a sudden we're seeing 3, which is 9. So I'm looking at what we could have been at that point, I think it was 12 or something, or no, 21. 21 was the number I think I saw.
For a tuition increase?
Yeah,
If you go back like 5 years ago,
5 years ago, yeah.
Interesting.
you're coming off the state not having any money.
So that was dealing with the state.
We've gotten more state money,
Okay,
interest income.
okay.
I mean, you start factoring a budget that had 200,000 versus 4 million. You know, that 4 million is basically a $16 tuition increase.
Yeah, because you kept saying if we didn't do this, we'd end up doing this, and then this the following year, which scared us trustees, because at that point, we didn't want to see anything happen to tuition being increased. So now we're seeing the 3, 3, and 3. That, this is making it feel like deja vu of that scenario, of the increases that we would have seen.
I think some back then, we had much larger increases, not knowing what some of the budget implications were.
True, but we did see the increases for those 3 years. That's what I'm saying.
Oh,
I'm
gotcha.
seeing like a deja vu of
Oh,
increases
okay.
again, you know?
It's a combination, I guess, of either expenses are controlled or revenue increases. You know, not expecting any big revenue increases from the state. Interest income is probably not going to increase much over the near future, but it's either tuition and or property taxes.
So are there any expenses that we can cut? I mean, I know the big bulk of it is our salaries, but is there anything else in that area that could be cut?
You know, Trustee Broderick, we're committed to exploring, as I mentioned in my opening statement, various cost-cutting measures,
Okay.
number of different efficiencies. But what I want the college community to understand is we put forth tremendous effort to do that right now. Some of them, Dr. Farmer mentioned in her presentation. Karen mentioned some of our help that we've received from the state of Illinois through different grants and through the Illinois Green Energy Network. So we're absolutely committed. What we want to do today is, you know, give the board a full and complete picture, recognizing that tuition's an important part, and it's a part that impacts our students, but it's a more complex issue and challenge for us. So.
One thing I think we have not shared or done research on, or that has been brought to this board, is I know we compared, Karen mentioned other schools, how much tuition increase they're going to be seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's mentioned what other schools have done in terms of controlling costs, like ever since the housing bubble in 2008, 2009, a lot of schools, especially four-year schools, were hurt by that, and their people were furloughed, people were laid off, there were salary freezes. None of that information is ever shared with the board about what other community colleges are doing right now, or within the last, I don't know, 5 years. So we don't know what other schools, what's been trending at other schools when it comes to those topics. I don't know that we have that on hand. I'm just saying, I don't know. That would be interesting to hear what other schools, because this college has done none of the above that I'm aware of. We've not furloughed anybody. We've not laid people off. Never. At least going back to the housing bubble crisis. Unless you're aware of
No,
something.
no, no. What you're saying is basically correct. I will say that was option shared with the board, and that option was not chosen.
Correct. Well, that was before me, but since I've been here, that's never happened.
And
But
I haven't either.
Right, but I'd like to know what other schools, what research, if anybody knows what that research is, what have other schools, community colleges, what have they done? What's been trending when it comes to those topics?
Especially things that happened during COVID too, because we did hear of things happening to personnel during COVID, because especially when there were things that, you know, the expenses were definitely cut because they had to do something with people that weren't doing anything with students there on campus. So they all said they were having expense problems and they had to cut. So what were those cuts when they did that during COVID?
Let me jump in here. Trustee Morales, I mean, these are great questions, and I'm not sure that we can learn everything that you're asking, but let us try. Let us give that our best effort. I'm going to put Dr. Farmer on deck here.
Thank you.
And just offer some things. So there's so many
Yeah.
courageous conversations that happen
Sure.
during the budget development process.
Absolutely, yes. And in fact, I don't know if Trustee Morales was a part of this or even Trustee Broderick, but we had a cost savings committee in the past.
A what?
A cost savings committee.
I don't remember that.
So I'll see if I can gather that information just from in the past. We did have a committee that reviewed opportunities for the college to look at ways to.
Was that during our time frame? Because I don't remember.
I'm not too sure, but I can look into that. And then also what we want to think about also regarding the cost savings, there are other community colleges that are doing furloughs. I mean, that's something that
Yeah.
we wouldn't support 100%, right? Even during, if you think about COVID, we only hired one particular position for the college. We did a pretty much a hiring freeze for a long time. I believe Dr. Urban's position was the only position that we moved forward at the institution, if you recall that. So we do have some history, and so I just need a little time to gather that information.
I have a question for you, Jeff, as a follow-up to all the conversations we're kind of already having. As we look at what our assumptions are from a revenue and expenditure standpoint, just for FY '27, and I appreciate the projection and what we're looking at, just to get a real comprehensive idea, but I really want to just hone in on FY '27. Assumptions, projections are saying the $3 tuition rate increase, sorry, while also assuming that the board goes ahead and votes on taking the full property tax levy, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I struggle with doing both of those. I think that it's hard. I recognize that we are all in a hard situation as an institution looking fiscally and the uncertainty that exists. And I know that residents of our district are also facing that. So to me, I look at it, and this is my first time going through this, right? So like, I don't want to be like, oh, I'm 100% yes, 100% no, but it's going to take me some time and some greater understanding. And I don't think that I could be a yes to a tuition increase as well as taking the full property tax rate. I think that case could be made, right? Like this is, and I've spent some time thinking about it since we had our finance committee meeting. I still feel like there's some information that I need a better understanding. And I wholeheartedly believe that staff every single day does their absolute best to make sure that we are as efficient as possible. I also look at where we have surpluses and where we're transferring, and we transferred surplus funds last year. We're on trend for that this year, and I would like that to be a factor in consideration, right? Like I could be a yes on a tuition rate increase, but it has to make sense, right? And is it just the tuition? You mentioned the student fee as well, right? So if we're going to be increasing tuition, well, I don't want it to be an absolute gouging of our students that take classes here. I want it to be comprehensive, and I want it to make sense, right? And with that, I am leaving because I have another event that I have to go to. So I'll tell my grandma you all say happy birthday.
Happy birthday to your
I
grandma.
have a question too. Jeff, have you taken into consideration, because this was mentioned yesterday, that with the potential of the Morris campus F-28 opening, is that factored into any of the expenses?
That's
And-
coming, Trustee Broder.
Because
That's coming
what-
on the next slide,
Okay,
or the final slide.
okay, I guess I'm ahead of you.
Trustee Bottomley reminded me, though, that something I wanted to say in regards to your previous comment, Trustee Broderick. It always makes me, a little nervous to present the 3-year because, I mean, there are already uncertainties for this fiscal year, but here we are. Here's my crystal ball, and let's look at FY '28 and FY '29. I recognize it's been standard practice of the college, and I love that we look out 3 years, but I just want to highlight that there are even more uncertainties for FY '28 and FY '29 as well.
And just one clarifying point that Trustee Bottomley said, we're just talking of presenting a tuition increase of $3. There's no adjustment to the fees on that schedule. It's just the tuition of $3.
I think we understood that. We're looking at it across, yeah.
Right, but we've raised fees in the past, though.
Yes, we
A
have.
couple
Yeah, because
times,
when we
yeah.
didn't raise tuition, we raised fees.
Right, yeah.
Which still affects the students'
Of course,
fees,
yeah, it affects them directly.
Yeah.
Have we ever had any salary freezes?
I know we went years with 2%. I mean, I want to say it seemed like 2% raises for like 10 years. It's what it felt like.
I think
I
we
don't
did
know if we
have, I
had
think we
zeros
did
or
have
not.
lower ones. We didn't go up, up, up. I think we stayed stagnant, if I remember correctly, when we
Yeah.
did that. We stayed stagnant, like it was two, whatever like that, yeah.
I wouldn't want to impose that on anybody making less than $110,000 a year. But I would consider it for anybody making over $110,000 a year. So we have a lot of very well-paid people on this campus, including faculty, and anyone under that I don't think should ever have to go through a freeze.
There, approximately 75% of our employees are supported through a union, and they're four-year union agreements. So just so you understand that they've already been
Already approved.
approved. So this reflects what has been
That's what
approved.
you're working from, is what's already been out there. and
Correct,
approved, right.
correct.
I have more, but I'll talk later. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Yes.
Based on all the numbers here, the tuition increase, all of that, is that based on the amount of what we're losing from the state?
I don't know if I could tie it directly.
Okay.
It's, at the end of the day, you're kind of looking at, here's projected expenses, here's projected revenues. Where does it fall out of? In some regards, it ends up being, if we wanted to balance, what would the increase need to be, or what expenses would we have to reduce or cut?
Trustee Harris, were you
Okay.
referring to the 2% that we referenced earlier in Jeff's presentation?
I don't know if I was referring to that or not. I was just asking, based on all the numbers. I know that there is a bill that's going to our governor's desk to sign to add funding to the community colleges. So I was thinking if these numbers are based on or tuition increase based on because of what we're losing, what would that amount change if you were to sign and we would get the funding that we might be losing?
I get, would it change the projected revenue numbers? Yes. You know, if we wanted to change what we assume for state revenue.
Okay, and then would it change the tuition increase?
It could. It could, Trustee Harris. I mean, that's one aspect of this. The state of Illinois this year did something interesting, right? So when the state of Illinois passed their budget, a $55 billion budget, a portion allocated to higher education, I believe is about 9% or so, 6% to universities, 3% to community colleges, right? But what they did was put part of all of our allocation in a lockbox. And while they didn't promise they'd unlock the box at some point, they just set it aside. Well, come to find out, about 2 months after the state passed their budget, the governor instructed and directed, rather, all of the state agencies to find 4% of their budget and put that in reserves in anticipation of continued uncertainty at the federal level, right? So you've actually heard that in the news most recently, $500 million in reserves. That's a result of that 4%. So what Jeff mentioned earlier, we did not count on that money. We didn't budget on that money, and that totaled about 200,000. For us, it's not a huge number. It's 200,000 out of the nearly 10 million. But that was neutralized by some additional state revenue that was a little bit higher than the 200,000. So that was a bit of a wash. But the short answer to your question, it could absolutely change our recommendation. But we won't know about it
Right.
until.
Right. I was
June.
just kind of wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So based on those assumptions, you know, we're projecting basically balanced for 27. Now, if you remember back from 10 or 12 slides ago, last year's financial presentation was showing about a $1.2 million potential deficit in 27. The main changes from that New initiatives, strategic initiatives was reduced from 500,000 down to 250,000. We reduced the planned transfer out of our operation and maintenance fund to cover deferred maintenance based on some of the surpluses we've had by about 400,000. And then property taxes based on new construction exceeding expectations and what the budget was based on, and the consumer price index for 27 being more than what was projected a year ago, pick up about 500,000. So that was the main changes that kind of added up to, a little over $1 million difference, or kind of covered that $1 million potential deficit that we showed last year. But as you trend out, it does kind of show a structural deficit of about 900,000 annually. It's going to grow about $900,000 annually at those assumptions. And for the question of these projections do not include anything right now from Grundy County or possible Public Safety Institute, because operating budgets are still being developed. So there is nothing of that in here.
So there's a possibility we could see, when you present the next set of budgets, giving us for 28, we could see another increase in tuition if we look at numbers that are gonna come. Because when I asked for the 5-year pro forma financial statement for the possibility of the Morris campus, because this is where Lincoln Way ran into their problem. Lincoln Way High School did not do the 5-year pro forma. They were basing it on money that was gonna be from the revenues that they didn't see. So that's where they fell into why North Campus was a failure. So when we look at the bonds that they expensed out there, that's where our tax bills definitely escalated for another 15 years after I talked to the superintendent out there. And he said, yeah, if we didn't do that and we had done a financial pro forma, we would have seen what was gonna be out there. We would have seen if we could have handled the debt structure, and they didn't. So if we don't see something of a financial 5-year forecast on that, how are we gonna even adjust to what we could for the next 5 years running that? I don't wanna see us keep increasing tuition. That's not what I'm here for. I'm here for the students, not to see them, almost paying. I mean, after we looked at what the dollar number was, what is it, about 4,600 yesterday that we saw for the total annual tuition yesterday?
4530, yeah, 4530.
Yeah, okay, so if we keep adding numbers to the tuition for each credit hour they have to take, I don't wanna see it elevated so high that they say, oh, forget it, I don't wanna go there. And I already know that there's students now in my district area of the district that are going to Moraine or to Kankakee just because of 80, but I'm just like, okay, we wanna keep the enrollment coming here. We don't wanna send it somewhere else. We gotta do something to make it so we're not increasing tuition.
Well, they have to go to their own district schools.
Pardon me?
They have to go to their own district. They just can't choose
Yeah,
to go
they
to
can,
Kankakee.
because Moraine is allowing them. Yeah, you'd be surprised. Maraine's allowing them to go there.
Just so you know, Kankakee Community College tuition and fees is $174 a credit hour, and Moraine Valley's is, and that's in district, it's $168.
Can I share with you? They are giving them our rate because of the I-80 problem.
Yeah.
How can they do that?
They are. The parents told me they're getting the JJC rate there.
About that. Okay.
It's just something that you guys should know about. I mean, you get to hear it when you're in the classroom and you're listening to the kids.
So Jeff, the slide you have up here, and I'm gonna go back to what Trustee Broderick said 20 minutes ago. We looked at a slide similar to this a few years ago with the shortfall. And I think it said shortfall, not surplus or deficit. I think we looked at a budget shortfall, was the term we were using back then. That helped us in making the decision to go ahead and raise the tuition, because at the time, you also showed us what it would be without the tuition increase. And then for the next 2 subsequent years. And I think that far right column, in this case, it's fiscal year 2029, but that wasn't the column we were looking at back then. Our fear at that time was, okay, if we don't do it now, and we do run into these deficits again, which were projected, not necessarily, they didn't come, like Trustee Broderick said, they disappeared. But if we didn't do it, we were afraid of, okay, now in 2029, we got to go $9 instead of going 3. And that's why we went ahead and did the initial $3. So I think the concern is planning 3 more years of tuition increases versus looking at a number of $880,000, knowing we have 18 months, we can fix that or address that first before we just, okay, we'll just assume we're going to raise tuition and we'll be okay. From a board standpoint, I think what the conversation is leading us to, we'd like to look at a lot of other things first before defaulting on a tuition increase. And I don't know if I summarized that from what I got out of what the conversation was. But this is the screen we looked at a couple of years ago that's been referenced in our conversation, is we saw the deficit shortfall and, we made decisions based on that. So I don't know if that helps you or not with what we're thinking.
No, I understand where you're coming. And I mean, that goes back to probably in FY '23's
Yes.
assumptions, so it would have been like January of '22. I mean, a different world back then for assumptions on state revenue, no interest,
Yeah.
rates started rising. And that tuition increase was really driven to cover, was it like 5 or 6 positions, if I recall correctly. They were kind of tied hand in hand.
And we're grateful that it didn't pan out that way, that we did get the revenues. We're not upset with that
Yeah.
part at all, because that did keep us from going back and revisiting it. But we're looking at the $9, not just the 3. And when we're looking at the other schools, where do we fit if we do go up $9? Now, assuming the other schools didn't, but we know they're going to raise too. That's just the board's concern.
Understood.
And I'm gonna ask this too, because this keeps coming up and keeps buzzing through things when you hear the media. What would happen if we decided, the US government decided to cut taxes? Where would we go then? And that's been the big buzzword, cut real estate taxes. Where would we go then? That's a big launch of a source of our income. Where would it go? Where would we go? What would we do? I mean, of course, all of us homeowners are excited if we hear that, but where would it happen to us? And that is a buzzword that you're hearing, because that is across the media, all sources of media that you keep hearing it.
No one in government is going to agree to stop taxing you. That's just.
I'm just saying, you keep hearing, yeah, but you keep hearing, things you keep hearing, and you don't know if it's gonna
Yes.
eventually happen or not, but it's a buzz thing that you have to listen to. You just have to keep it in the thought process that what happens. I'm just throwing it out there.
No, they've been talking about that forever.
Yeah.
I know.
They'll never get any of that past any type of committee,
Okay, I'm
in
just
my
throwing- I'm
opinion.
just-
I
I'm just
I
throwing
could
out
definitely
there.
could be wrong on that, but
And then the other side of it too is, we have a school in our 525 district, and it's a great school that gives back all of the tax money to their homeowners. How are they imagining to do this? And they keep expanding and doing things, and it's the mayor of our town that does this, because he's the superintendent of that school.
it's a district that 10 years ago had no tax base and has a tax base of basically 100% warehouses with
You
no
got it,
students.
it's got the warehouse. So I guess they give, and I mean, all those homeowners, and my brother lives in that district, they love it when they get their real estate tax bill back from their school district. And you look at what our reserves are at, what about our reserves too? And I'm gonna throw that out.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about reserves also. I know that, as a board, we recently approved labor agreements that were fair and they were responsive to the employee needs. And in that context, I think it's reasonable to ask our institution collectively, including staff and administration and faculty, to intensify recruitment efforts and engagement efforts to help meet the enrollment goals that we are, struggling with. This is not so much about working harder, but more so about aligning our shared efforts toward growth so that tuition increases can be avoided whenever possible. Because what I see here is the expenditures are going to outpace our revenues within the next 3 years. So we need to get a better control on our expenditures somehow, because we're not going to have students to come here if we're going to keep raising tuition. Right now, I'm uncomfortable raising tuition even just by a small amount, just because of all the uncertainties and what's happening we already saw that a lot of people don't even want to say that they are Latino because of what's going on in the federal administration. I just think we can reprioritize things around to help that enrollment growth that we need. If we have enrollment growth, we wouldn't be having this conversation probably.
And I have another question too. Have we ever done a utilization study on Main and on Romeoville campus to make sure we're using every possible classroom space with all availability of students to go there? Because I'm one, from my previous experience at New Lenox School District, we had to make sure that we were functionally able to add a new building if we needed. If the growth was still able to be in the existing buildings, could we use our existing buildings? And I'm gonna come back from a financial perspective that we had to know that we could. And if we could expand those buildings, we expanded 4 of our buildings that were older buildings before we could even build any new buildings. So I'm gonna say, do we have any reports that we could look at that says all the space in Maine is utilized, all the space in Romeo is utilized? Because those are our 2 main campuses. I'm not worried about downtown. I'm looking at Maine and Romeo.
I can address that. We use a classroom utilization report that shows every hour who's occupied, not who, if that room's being occupied. And, I mean, it is true, you can walk down the hallway at 4 o'clock and there are empty rooms. The problem is that the students, that is when they want class. They love class from 9 to 1.
Mhm.
They don't like the afternoon, and then it fills up in the evening again.
Mhm.
We've tried running classes 3, 4 in the afternoon, and that becomes fiscally irresponsible because they don't fill. And here we're paying a full-time faculty member to teach. You know, every class that, when we run the report, every class that's not at least 50% filled, the deans and I go through every single one of them, and we look at why would we run this? Who is in this class? Do they need it to graduate? How many times have we run it in the past year? Do we need to put it at a different time? Do we need a different faculty member? There's a whole list of things that we go through. So I would love to have more courses in the afternoon. That's probably the time where we're not utilizing classrooms as much, but we cannot get students to enroll in those classes.
Do you think it's because of the work schedule that they have, because they're part-time?
Yeah.
So you think it's because of that, because of the part-time issues? So you do have space, it's just that it's trying to match up to the class, the students and their schedules to what you have. So you do have space in both Romeo and Maine, is what my understanding is, correct?
Yes, and it also, I think it's better to think in different areas. For example, in the U building,
Mhm.
that building is full.
Okay.
It starts about 8 in the morning and 10 o'clock at night, there are classes running. In J, they are full. In the CT areas, they are typically full. There are some other ones, especially on the gen ed side, where the rooms are not as utilized.
Mhm.
So not only do we look at all the classrooms, we look at the different areas, because the fix, if you will, in different areas is going to be different. So we look at it individually.
And how often do you assess the classrooms, the courses that you're offering? Because when we had the one vice president that's now the president at Danville, he used to go every 2 years, whatever, and assess all of the courses that were being taken so that we knew that we were doing the right courses to get the right group of students in that wanted it. Because you hear, and it's funny, my cousin passed away this past weekend, and I was listening to my, nephew that is going to Aurora. And that's where he's at the Wabanzi Aurora thing. And he's all excited because of the AI stuff for security. They are huge on that. And he was like, yes, this is what we're doing, and this is all devoted to that. And he says they have just kids coming from all over to come to that. And I'm like, okay, that, and you mentioned that. So that was like stimulating to hear that. And I was like, Jeremy, you're going to Wabanzi, but he said, yeah, I had to move there in that area to go to it.
We have that program as well.
I told him that, because I did know that we had it. But it was exciting to hear that he was so excited about what they were offering, and that's what he wanted to get into. And that's what you want to hear. Because even when I ask the students in class, when I'm in class, and I say, so, what are your plans? If I'm looking at juniors and seniors, besides asking about dual credit, what are your plans? What's your next chapter for college? Some are saying this college, that college. I always say, what about JJC? Oh yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Well, you know, it's getting them more excited. And I think that's the excitement level to see what they can get to bring them on, but also to find out what their needs are for classroom structures and times of that too. So,
Well, and to answer your question that you started off with is we assess the courses 3 times a year,
okay.
and then we assess at the program level every year, every program.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
And then that one is a formal, written up, 15-page document every 5 years. We're on a cycle. We also send those to ICCB so that they look at them as well.
And what's the minimum you allow for class size to have a course there?
Well, it depends. Some of them have caps. So, for example, in a medical assisting class, their cap is 12.
Okay.
So anything, like I said, that falls less, most gen ed classes are at 28.
Okay.
But anything that falls at less than half filled, and we, on Wednesday of opening week, before classes start on Monday, the deans and I sit down. It took us about 5 hours this past start, and we go through every single class that's not filled, and we ask all the questions. And if those questions aren't answered, the class gets canceled.
Also,
you,
as
Dr.
part of
Gray.
the facilities master plan, we are doing a utilization study. So Liget does a utilization of all campus classrooms, campus spaces. That helps inform, how we're going to expand, where we're going to expand, what we're going to move. So we
Yeah,
do
'cause I was
that.
wondering if they had the utilization plan.
Yeah,
Oh,
they do
that's
that. They do
good.
that. It's different than what Dr. Gray's team does, but we're looking at that as well.
Good, thank you.
Jeff, go ahead.
Sorry, Jeff.
Most of this, I think we've probably already talked about. Basically, we're entering, a more constrained operating budget. Our budget's driven by personnel and fixed costs, which limits discretionary. The basically new initiatives will have to be prioritized, either funded by new revenues or expense reductions.
You start.
Just kind of more of an FYI, you'll hear more on the master plan over the next few months. Our general obligation bond, the referendum bond from back in November of 2008, the final tax levy is 2027. So that will be ending in the near future. And that original referendum was for $89 million. And the final year of the tax levy will be about $9.6 million.
And as Jeff says, this dovetails perfectly with the master plan. So when we present the final master plan to you, with this referendum ending, it might be time to have a conversation about where do we go next with this referendum. And so we'll be coming to you, we just have this conversation with the timeline to get your input and feedback.
Well, it was good the way that Dr. Noel put it up yesterday about how much each of the buildings were when we went out for referendums for each of those, because everybody needed to see what the cost of those buildings were and what we passed for referendums. And to see that, because I had people come up, we love seeing what the numbers were. Because, with the revisions and the improvements to Romeoville, the campus here, and, the event center and all that stuff, we needed to see that. Because, that was not something that the population really, drew attention to until now.
So just the kind of future timeline, we went through the projections tonight, I guess, for February on tuition. Preliminary budget at the May meeting, along with an update, and then look at the June meeting for adopting the FY27 budget.
Are we gonna have another informational meeting though? Because like we had talked about, when we were gonna discuss what comes out of the budget, to look when we first get the budget, and that's what, she had asked for, and we were all concerned about understanding the budget, having another meeting before we do approve that budget. Remember we talked about that? So that we would have more of a discussion, that we could sit there and ask our questions, get them answered before we get to the table for a final approval. Because we don't have to, we just have to have a meeting set up, so that's put into the plan. We don't have to do anything for policy. We just have to have another meeting set up so that we can say, this is the meeting structured for us to review and go through questions and answers on anything that we have regarding the budget.
So Chairman, if it's okay with you, if needed, if that's the consensus of the board, we'll work through the Finance Committee to kind of coordinate that? Okay. Okay. All right, thank you, Jeff.
That's all I had.
How about a hand for Jeff Heap, everybody?
Aren't you glad it's
Oh, my
done, Jeff?
goodness.
Sorry there were so many questions.
It's great. No, this is what we need. We need all of your input, and this is going to be an ongoing conversation as well. Your input is very important to us. You know, the timeline that Jeff referenced is the ideal timeline. Some of the later dates are firm. The tuition increase will come to you in February, but we want to be sure that that's the lever that we want to pull this time around. So let the administration go back. We've all got pages of notes right now. Go back, do our work, and come back to the full board with a more formal recommendation. Yes, Trustee Bishop.
I do have just one question.
Absolutely.
Is House Bill 3717 factored into this with the potential for 150% of tuition, or no?
It's not, but we have allocated some resources in the FY26, and I believe we intend to carry that over to the FY27 budget to support exploring bachelor's degrees at community colleges. Now, when we actually achieve the authority to do that, we'll need to have more detailed conversations about, number one, which programs might be impacted, and then how that might impact our budget.
Thank you for the clarification. You know, I wasn't going to tangent here, but I just want to say JJC is about providing superlative, future-focused, and comprehensive academic outcomes for myself and my peers. Now, in doing so, we also need money within the budget to provide for programs and students. The same quality education that we expect and continue to expect of our college leadership. But on behalf of my peers, I'd just like to request that every reasonable effort is made before the implementation of such a measure. Students are already struggling systemically, regardless of a 33% FAFSA receivable rate. It's still a pretty large ask.
Thank you, Trustee Bishop, for advocating for students, for being the voice of students here. We hear you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And weren't they on the seminar that was on Monday, weren't they talking about supporting and hoping that they increase more to the Pell Grant too? Isn't that what I understood too? And the short term, weren't they trying to do more for the Pell Grant from what I understood?
I believe the Pell Grant is, and the federal government is kind of going through its process right now, but the House committee passed what essentially appears to be, at this point, it's got to go through the Senate and signed by the president, of course, level funding for most of the programs that community colleges care about.
And weren't they talking about also more for even those that are taking less hours still? Because that's what I kept hearing too, that they were trying to encourage, to make sure that we do say that we want to support that.
And then what you're referring to, Trustee Broderick, is what I referenced earlier in regards to Workforce Pell.
Right.
Essentially, a new line item would be a new line item in the budget. So.
Yeah, because I mean, that's what I kept hearing, that they were wanting to see us make sure that we said, told our legislators, please support all this. Please get out there and make sure you support it, because we need that. And the students need it too, especially when with inflation hitting the tuition.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I mention something, please? So, first of all, I want to just, I appreciate the work the administration has done to present this recommendation. And I know that under Dr. Namu's leadership, we're doing different things to try to increase that enrollment. And the Future Wolves is definitely, reaching out to the younger students in elementary school. But are we, can we have a broader reach, or are we only in certain districts, or are we in all districts that filter into JJC? How is that working? That's one question. And then next is, I know that we also have a Discover JJC, and I think it's only done once a year. I don't know if it's twice a year, just twice a year.
Yeah.
Okay, twice a year. But we bring families here, right? Can we do that in reverse, where maybe we can visit different schools so that the parents at those schools, because to come out here only 2 times a year, it's a great event when we have it. I just think we need to have more of them, or maybe go out to the high schools. And I know Dr. Farmer mentioned that we have been very strategic with our high schools. But can you tell us how what different things are we doing as far as enrollment strategies? How are we being more strategic? Our new advisors that we hired, are they also getting on the phone, making cold calls, building relationships, going to high schools? I mean, there's nothing in the, it should fall under all duties as assigned for them to go visit schools, or for even higher management, directors, people in director positions, people in dean positions, to get out to the high schools. What are we specifically doing? Just like Dr. Gray mentioned, how we have a roster and we can check every classroom to see how it's utilized. We need to see how people's time is being utilized. Are we being productive? Are people being productive to being more aggressive with enrollment goals? Because we're going to be facing this in 3 years. We're going to be asking for more tuition. But I'm going to ask the same questions because I plan on being here. What are we doing different? How is all of our staff's time being utilized differently to help with these enrollment gaps? So those are my questions. Thank you.
And they are excellent questions, as always, Trustee Morales. I'm going to have Dr. Brooks just respond a little bit, only because we will compile a comprehensive report because we're doing so much in the enrollment management area. Discover JJC is just one initiative, but there's a lot more that we can share in person, verbally, and then also in writing too.
And I think that's just what we need to know, because
Sure,
if we're not informed,
absolutely.
then we don't know what's taking place.
Yes.
Thank
And
you.
Trustee Morales, we will provide that
Yes.
Thank you.
strategic enrollment management report to
absolutely.
the board. Absolutely.
Yes.
That could be another workship starting
I
right
know,
now.
right?
But
I know.
I know. We want to get out of here at some point.
So we'll hold and
yeah.
we'll just go
Thank
ahead
you,
and,
Chairman.
provide that strategic enrollment management report, and then maybe we'll have a presentation.
Thank
We'll
you.
go from there.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Dr. Gray. Thank you, Karen. We are going to move on to item 2.2, the lobbyist presentation. Dr. Namuel to lead this one.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll invite Kelly Roeder-Tonelli up to, and our guests, our wonderful guests here. As the trustees, as the board will recall, for many years we had engaged Julie Curry, just a great friend of the college. She would take us through lobby days in addition to advocating for many of the things that many of the successes, the buildings, for example. I'm thinking specifically of her advocacy as it relates to the city center campus. Where Julie's advocacy stopped, though, is where point of difference strategies really starts. So not only do we now have state level advocacy, but we now have federal level advocacy. The decision this board made about a year ago to invest in a new lobbying firm, Point of Different Strategies. You must have all had a crystal ball, because their advocacy, specifically at the federal level, has helped us navigate some of those uncertainties. So understanding it's the interest of the board to learn more about what our lobbying firm provides to us. I wanted to invite Kelly Roeder-Tonelli here to coordinate with Point of Difference and provide the board with some additional information. Kelly, take it away.
Thank you for that great introduction. I think I can cut my remarks down to
Sorry.
maybe 2 paragraphs, but no, truly, I'm pleased to be here with you and to introduce just 2 of the 3 members of our lobbying team at Point of Difference, Maria Virginia Martinez and David Idelier. Connor McDermott, whose primary focus is advocacy in Springfield, was unfortunately able to attend. So as you may remember, we selected Point of Difference Strategies last year for their comprehensive services, strong reputation, and expertise in higher education to support our lobbying and advocacy efforts. Under this contract, the firm has provided both state and federal lobbying services, marking JJC's first investment in federal lobbying. I really truly want to thank President Namuo and the board for supporting the expansion of our footprint in this space. As you'll hear from David and Maria, we're definitely moving the needle. The timing of this partnership could not have been better, given the level of uncertainty in Washington over the last year and the need for timely and accurate information. And just even speaking on that, David has taken calls from me while walking from meeting to meeting in the US Capitol. Connor and Maria are readily available. This kind of business does not just happen between the hours of 9 and 5. It's all the time. And I just want to commend them for how available they are and how proactive they are in representing our needs. I think one of my favorites was this past veto session. The House of Representatives ended their session at 2:30 in the morning, and the session ended at 4:30 a.m. So they've done a great job of representing our interests. And again, no matter what time of day it is, they are there to listen, to clarify, and to educate. So, you know, this expansion was intentional. You know, we really wanted to broaden JJC's reach, and ensure that JJC is really seen on a statewide and more national level. And Point of Difference has done a great job in helping, just in this first year, positioning the college as a leader in education and workforce innovation. So you might recall in one of Dr. Namuo's previous board reports, he featured a higher education roundtable that we hosted over the summer and invited key legislators from across the state. One of those was Senator Mike Halpin, who's actually the chair of the Education Appropriations Committee and vice chair of the Higher Education Committee. He oversees Rock Island, Galesburg, but what a great opportunity we had to showcase what JJC can do and just, you know, show that impact in person. And I believe that that opportunity was successful because of the strong reputation and relationships that Point of Difference has. With that, I'm going to invite David and Maria to the podium, who will discuss our legislative strategy and an overview of their firm.
Thank you, Kelly, for that wonderful introduction. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Namuo, and board members. I'm Maria Virginia Martinez. This is David Adelia, my colleague. And today, during today's presentation, oh, I can hit this, right? Oh. Next. Okay. This is our agenda for today. As Kelly mentioned, Connor McDermott is a crucial part of our team as well, but he is unable to make it today. However, we will still be able to walk you through JJC's legislative goals, not only what we have been able to accomplish in 2025, but also looking forward in 2026, what that strategy looks like, and what tactics we use to accomplish that strategy. And we will always, if there's any questions, feel free to interrupt us, or we can leave them for the end, however you would like to proceed. So who we are a government affairs agency bringing together the public sector experience, legal expertise, and deep connection to diverse communities. So our main purposes are to drive the policy agenda. So whatever interests the JJC has, we will drive that forward. We will also be at the forefront whenever there's any pieces of legislation that we believe will be of impact to the college. We will flag for the team, and then Kelly will let us know whether JJC would like to take a stance, or just keep an eye on it for the time being. We also build authentic community partnerships and stakeholder engagement. I think something that we can also point to is that the governor's office has come to visit JJC, I believe, 4 times in the last year, which is a huge accomplishment, right? There's the JJC has visibility in the governor's office, and they're using it to highlight and demonstrate how our community college are a vital piece of our communities and part of the state as well.
Let's not forget, we had a Synonymous Conference visit last year too.
So, government affairs, I think maybe a little bit of background on what government affairs means. What we do is we essentially become we help bridge the gap in communication and negotiations, all kinds of bridging the gap between the private sector and the public sector. In this case, it's public sector to public sector. However, the college itself is its own entity, it's separate from the city, as we all know. So what we help do there is drive your agenda, your education agenda, your budget agenda, and everything in between, both at the state and at the federal level, and our stakeholder engagement. So whenever there's been interest in workforce development, right, we have been able to connect the college to other nonprofit organizations, bridge that communication, see what JJC can offer, and making sure that we craft initiatives that resonate, mobilize, and create lasting influence, not only in Joliet, but also across the state and federal. So this is our team. We're not going to go into everybody's bios. We can go into, I'll go into a little bit of my own background, and David will then present his. So I began my legal career down in the Senate President's office under President Cullerton. I then went to work at Cook County Board of Review, representing Cook County in front of the Property Tax Appeals Board. And then I had the privilege of representing the City of Chicago as part of the Intergovernmental Affairs team down in Springfield. So I negotiated and led on City of Chicago initiatives on behalf of the city as in-house counsel. Now, David?
Thanks, Maria. Thank you for the invite to join you all today. I just want to start my remarks
Can you lift the microphone?
congratulating you all on your resiliency. I know it's been an interesting 2 years in the United States. Higher education is at the forefront of a lot of issues, and you are safeguarding a lot of students from a lot of the unknown out there. So I just want to thank you for being a resource. Being back in your halls today reminds me of being an active student at the University of Illinois way back when. So this is good. It's good to get out of downtown and come and see your work, see your advocacy, and supplement the work that we're doing in the halls in Springfield and Washington, D.C. My name is David Adelia. I manage our federal affairs at Point of Difference Strategies. I think 3 weeks after I graduated from the University of Illinois, I moved to Washington, D.C. to work in the White House's policy staff. There, I got to see the entire federal government at work, understanding how the budget process works from A to Z. After working at the White House, I went to law school, and I've had stints in the private sector and the public sector and private sector. Worked at Indiana University in their government affairs shop, and then also in the U.S. Senate and also in private practice. So bringing all those capabilities to service you all and to make sure I'm an advocate for you all in front of Congress and make sure that I know your issues. You know your issues better than anyone in the room. But my job is to be your speakerphone in those halls. So pleasure to meet you all, and thank you. So our strategy is, to provide support in Springfield and Washington, D.C. to advance your legislative goals, to ensure operational continuity in service of the great students at your institution. So we employ tactics on a daily, weekly, sometimes hourly basis to make sure we are doing that. We have monthly meetings and engagements with key stakeholders in the governor's office, General Assembly, in Congress, with members of Congress and other key staff. Our team is made up of a lot of former staff who have staffed the government at the highest levels, whether that be in Washington, D.C. or the state. We know the process, we know how the sausage is made. We were often the first in the room before our bosses even gotten in there, and we were the last. And they asked us our recommendations based on who was in front of them. So we bring a unique perspective and experience to what it means to pass laws, what it means to defeat laws, what it means to get regulations passed, what it means to defeat regulations. We also have weekly legislative strategy meetings with the JJC team, which are lovely. We're able to talk about updates, priorities at the state and federal level, and ways we can be a resource to JJC in any capacity. We also, I'm looking forward to joining JJC's first fly-in to Washington, D.C. this year, where we have meetings set up with members of Congress and key staff, and we have in-district meetings with state legislators and lawmakers to showcase JJC's wonderful programming and positive outcomes for students. So we're going to talk a bit about the 2025 results, given that we started around this time last year with you all.
Thank you, David. So I know that the community college baccalaureate program was mentioned earlier as a concern and something that the college is keeping in mind for the strategy moving forward. We were able to represent and make sure that JJC's voice and was in the room when these conversations were happening. It was moving very fast at the end of last session. It was very fast, flash moving. It was at the end of session, just for a little bit of background, when we do end of session, those last 2-3 weeks, even those last 2-3 days, things are moving at the speed of light, if not faster. And so those negotiations, Connor and I were in the room making sure that communication was being passed back to JJC immediately. When we were doing roll calls along with the association, we were part of it. We were part of the roll call as well. How ultimately it did not pass last session. However, the legislative, the 104th legislative session lasts 2 years, so that bill is still technically alive. It will still be part of we actually kind of did have a conversation with the governor's office, and we were informed that this will continue to be a priority on their agenda. So we will continue to negotiate that on your behalf, make sure that whatever programming is being required, whatever requirements are going to be asked of you, that we make sure that JJC is not only prepared, but also willing to meet those requirements. And if not, then we'll negotiate on your behalf as well. During veto session, we also had House Bill 1312, which was now called the Illinois Bivens Act, which is the one that issued further protections for schools and churches and traditionally protected spaces from immigration enforcement. We made sure that JJC's concerns were brought forth, and so we were able to negotiate those, and also by the time that the bill came to a final vote, it was agreed upon, and JJC was better positioned than had it not been in those rooms. The last three are federal, so I'm going to pass them on to David.
Thanks, Maria. I think everyone remembers last year and the, what's affectionately known as the One Big Beautiful Bill and all the negotiations that were happening throughout that time. Just a case study in that it's important to, be an informational stakeholder because, you're impacted by the discussions at the White House, you're impacted by discussions at, in Congress and also at the Department of Education and by stakeholders like us, lobbyists who are informing these policymakers. So I remember July 4th, 2025, but I also remember the discussions before that to get to the One Big Beautiful Bill. And as everyone knows, two important items that are relevant to JJC that was included in that is the workforce Pell Grants and the $10 billion injection to the Pell Grant program that addressed the looming shortfall. So two major wins for community colleges across the nation, but most importantly to you all in the room. And we were also in that room making sure that while there was opposition to the overall bill, making sure that members understood and staff understood the great and the positive consequences that this could bring for community colleges across the United States. Affordability is at the top of everyone's mind. It's going to be the theme in the 2026 campaign season, and for years to come, you are at the forefront of addressing the affordability crisis in the United States. So I think that's also another hook that we have, in our future advocacy with policymakers that, given the exorbitant costs of a lot of things right now that we're all feeling, no matter what tax bracket you fall into, that community colleges are serving a need in our communities and are here to serve our students in need. I'll talk a bit about the 2026 and what we're looking at this year, but that was just a key moment in the federal government. Also, congressionally directed spending request is always at the top of everyone's mind, what we like to call earmarks. Earmarks are, the mood around earmarks is changing in Washington, D.C., to put it frankly. There are fiscal hawks in Congress who believe that traditional appropriations should go through the regular process and that there should not be carve-outs for specific folks. There is also a large contingent that disagrees with that because we see the necessity that earmarks do have in our communities, and they're here for a reason to make, you all had a earmark request through Congresswoman Underwood's office for fiscal year 24, 25 for your entrepreneurship center, and she was able to come see the good that that's doing. So she's one of your champions for sure. And whenever I have a conversation with her and her staff, she's always mentioning Joliet Junior College. So our job is to continue advocating for those and to be a partner for you to feed us the good information that you all are doing here at the college, so we can echo that to Congress so those can keep coming in the future. And then, as I just mentioned, with the tidbit about Congresswoman Underwood, your visibility is great in Washington, D.C., from our two senators, Senator Duckworth and Senator Durbin, all the way to the Congresswoman who presides over this district. They're huge fans of what you're doing. So whatever you're doing, keep it up. It makes our jobs easier, and it makes your ask to them way much easier as opposed if you were, in a negative light. So continue the great work, put great students in front of them, and we're looking forward to continue working with you all this year.
Okay, so looking ahead, our lobby days in Springfield, I believe a few of you actually joined us last year when we had an entire day packed with barely lunch. We went and met with members of both chambers in the House and in the Senate, where they were able to learn further about JJC, because something that is crucial is understanding that as much as your local elected officials are going to be your champion, we also need more votes than that, right, in order to pass a bill and for them to approve anything that we are championing, which means that we need to be socialized properly. And that also means that we have to inform legislators on what our purposes are beyond the ones who are in the region. And so we were able to successfully do that. And we look forward to doing that again this year. Keeping in mind that the baccalaureate degrees may come up again and whatever fiscal asks we may have. I mean, we've already kind of had that discussion about the 500. It was actually the governor decided to ask the agencies to withhold from spending 4%. He had to ask them to please withhold because the money was already allocated by the legislature. So it's not mandatory, but it is recommended. And in that was the $29.5 million as well that was reserved for higher education, which my understanding is that $200,000 was affected from JJC. So, having those conversations, making sure that legislators understand the impact of what that $200,000 does to the overall budget is important. And then the DC effects as well.
Yeah, so we'll continue. So looking forward to joining you all. You're flying into Washington, D.C. and meeting with key members and key staff while there. And then also continuing the cadence of in-district meetings with members of Congress. So they're not always, for folks who are not familiar with the congressional calendar, they spend, a couple weeks in Washington, D.C. and come to their home districts for a week and some change throughout the month to spend time with folks in the community in their district. So, making sure that we are inviting members of Congress to key roundtable discussions that you're having at the community college, making sure we're creating opportunities for them to engage with your student base so they can see their programs and the federal dollars at work in real time so they can continue to be an advocate for you in front of the appropriators in Congress. And site tours were a hit last year from what I heard. I'm looking forward to joining the next one. Like just continuing that and the creativity to make sure that, you know, JJC is putting themselves on the map with these legislators, because it is a very competitive appropriations environment, as everyone understands. We are not the only community college in Illinois, and other folks are making similar requests. So how we get ahead of the competition is, you know, being able to showcase the great work that you're doing here. This is a beautiful building. Being able to invite members here and their staff here to just showcase the work that you're doing is important. And we'll talk a bit about the looming and pending election season and navigating the political landscape that is 2026. So we'll start with Springfield.
I mean, you're there.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
So we'll start with Washington, D.C. So as everyone knows, appropriations is in the news right now. The government has not reached a consensus on full-year funding for FY26. They passed a couple of appropriations bills that fund the work of Congress, but unfortunately, one of those bills that has not been addressed yet is Department of Education and its operations. So, unfortunately, an incident happened in Minneapolis this past week where it caused a rift in Congress, where they want to make some adjustments to the Department of Homeland Security, another agency where I used to work. And Homeland Security is also one of those bills in there. They want to pass a subset of bills without Homeland Security funding, or make some policy changes to the way that immigration enforcement is being handled in communities across the United States. So those conversations are still pending. We are officially in shutdown watch, as everyone don't want to cause any panic in the room, but as with a looming government shutdown, the Office of Management Budget instructs all impacted agencies to essentially put a D-Day memo together where essential staff will remain, staff will be unfortunately furloughed, and they will list the operations that are impacted and not impacted. Fortunately for higher education across the United States, federal student loan processing and federal student aid is often unaffected because it's so crucial, but everything can change. So working with Kelly on a weekly, it'll become a daily basis once we encroach on shutdown territory some more, just making sure that your operations are covered, and if there are any operational slowdowns or anything that's happening at the college that we know, so we can elevate that to the necessary stakeholders and be helpful. There is another possibility of a reconciliation bill. The One Big Beautiful Bill was a reconciliation bill. A reconciliation bill is essentially a bill that addresses fiscal policy in the United States. So if that is done again, that's another window of opportunity for advocacy to see what was left off in the previous iteration of the One Big Beautiful Bill, to see if we can get any wins for higher education in there. So that'll be more conversations to come, but they just need to fund the government this month by Friday in order to continue those conversations. Like I mentioned, affordability is at the top of everyone's mind. It's going to be a theme. Centering that around our strategy and tactics when we're engaging with members of Congress is going to be key this year. And then, as everyone knows, my former boss, actually, Senator Durbin, is retiring from the U.S. Senate, and a new person will be taking his position next year. That is a huge impact on the state of Illinois. Senator Durbin is one of the key members on the Senate Appropriations Committee and has provided great resources to mostly all of the institutions across the state of Illinois. So as soon as that next person is elected, getting them up to speed on your operations here at JJC and guiding them and putting them, again, inviting them here, guiding them through the process. We don't know who it's going to be, but whoever that is will have a game plan ready to implement day one, so they understand your operations, and to see how we can partner on JJC priorities.
Which actually makes a great segue into what has already been mentioned a few times. The governor's office is anticipating a $500 million gap due to the funding pulls from the federal government, mainly surrounding healthcare. So we should also anticipate that this year will be a very tight budget year for the state of Illinois. It has, we should anticipate that the State of the State, which is coming up February 18th, is going to take a very fiscally conservative tone. And we should all there's probably going to be a lot of talk of sharing the sacrifice. And so that's what that will look like. However, we still anticipate that CJA will continue to be a priority for this administration, which means our workforce programs. Anything that has to do with our clean energy workforce programs will continue to be a priority in funding across the state. And as we mentioned, the expansion of the four-year degree programs to community college, we will be at the forefront. We will make sure that Kelly and the team here is informed as to any progress, any hurdles, and anything that will be coming down the pike. As David has also alluded to, in the state of Illinois, the legislature is very reactive to social issues. And so that will remain the main driver of policy decisions, particularly during an election year. We have already actually begun our process of going through all of the bills that are being filed at the state and flagging the ones that we believe may be of interest, whether direct or indirect interest to the college. And we have begun filtering those through over to Kelly. And as time moves on, we'll continue the lobby day. And if we need to have more days where JJC's presence is felt on campus, our legislative campus, we will also make sure to adjust accordingly.
Thank you.
Jump in before we go to questions. One of the things that I realized I didn't mention at the top is a couple of the key issues that should be familiar to you all around the dais. The first time we met with the POD team, they were aware of our interests in expanding a campus and presence in Grundy County, so they are fully up to speed on that project. They're also aware of the Public Safety Institute and our interests there. And we're also just last week talking about which legislators we want to pitch different projects for congressionally discretionary funding or spending to. So the EBC, the Entrepreneurial Business Center, is another part of that legislative strategy this year. So I just wanted to make sure that that was communicated. So any questions?
I have some. Question. The governor knows me very well because I presented him with an award from the ICCTA as the past president of the ICCTA. That's the Illinois Community College Trustees Association. Are you tied in with that? Because we do have someone that works with all of the legislators that's in the Capitol, Jessica, and she gets in and gives us all the updates. And we also have a committee that's assigned to doing the baccalaureate for all of the 48 community colleges in Illinois. So I'm curious as to that.
Yeah, no, great question, Trustee Broderick. We actually, the communication has been very smooth. So to your point, Illinois has a very robust system. Our colleges are connected. We speak with one voice. We set 3 or 4 priorities every legislative cycle that we want to see movement on. And so the POD team is looped into that. And in fact, sometimes Liz Brown is who you're talking about, who's the lobbyist for the Illinois Community College President's Council, will absolutely work in partnership with POD as needed.
Okay, because she's always bringing us, information to our quarterly meetings. She's always updating us. And then when we go for lobby days, in April or May, end of April or beginning of May, we always have the whole bulletins of what they want us to present to our legislators because we're all a community bringing the same information to all. Because I think when we go even to Washington, we have a mission and we have a mission statement that, I've gone as a legislator, as one of the trustees, we feel real comfortable going and talking to our legislators because we have a full knowledge of what we need and what we're looking for. I mean, that's why I'm a little bit concerned that I feel like we as trustees don't know enough. But I think when we go, we have a good backing of what we're presented with. And I just listened to the National Legislative Summit briefing that they gave us from the ACCT. Are you guys members of the ACCT? American Community College Trustees?
No, but they do have the list of priorities.
Okay, because
So-
they gave us a total agenda of everything that's gonna
Right.
be going on with this upcoming, February conference of what
Right.
we're supposed to be looking at, what's going on. They gave us full, robust agenda of everything that's detailed of what we need to be talking to our legislators. So it gives us a good backing of understanding what we should be talking to them about. I've never had the lobbyists with us in DC. And I mean, we've had Julie when she was with us in Springfield, but never in DC. And I thought we came across very well. It was Kelly, myself, which is we had a trustee, we had the student trustee, and we also had the president, which we gave all of our positions. And I think all of our legislators came across to understand what our needs for our college were. But everybody else, all of the other community colleges, they got as many trustees as they could to meet all of their legislators. So I felt that there was an impact for Illinois from all of us. And all of us trustees work, together. It's a mission. And we stress that every time we meet, that it's a mission for all of us in Illinois.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate those comments. I'm not gonna get too far into the weeds here, but when Maria and David say that we meet weekly, even if it's not an active session, we are meeting every Monday for the entire year, okay? Just to touch base on different opportunities, whether it's active legislative session or not. The second thing is that I also sit on Mondays as well with the state organization legislative committee, and then we do a call on Friday. So there's a lot of
There's a lot.
coordination going on between what you're talking about at the state level and what we are doing here. And I want to be clear, POD is certainly a complement to the statewide priorities and what we're seeking there, but they're really here to represent our interests as a specific institution. So when I talk about those projects and looking for, capital funding primarily, that's what they're doing for us. They're on the ground, they're there. We know that we've got great relationships with our legislators, but, I'm gonna tell you what, there's 99% of the time, I'm probably not gonna be able to go to an important appropriations committee meeting to listen in, file a witness slip. Maybe I can, but they're there and having those conversations as, I can't remember which one of you said, when the sessions start to move at the speed of light, we can be on the phone and say, we feel comfortable with this language. Can you talk to Senator so-and-so about a shift here or what their intention was in writing the bill this way? So that's where we're really finding the
And that's good to
opportunity.
understand, because we want to feel that we have value in what we do when we talk to our legislators. We just don't want to feel like we're just on the side, just looking pretty. So we want to know that we do have some value in what we do, because, I have all the legislators, they've given us our cell, they've given us their LAs too, to talk to if we need anything. And it feels very comfortable that we have that ability to do it. And I love lobby days, I love when we go to Washington DC, because it's very open. They're looking for us, they're waiting for us. And if they can't meet us in DC, hey, come to our office, our regional office. So it's a good thing to know that it's warm and inviting with them, that they're welcoming us. And you did say you guys meet weekly? Is there any way we can get like a monthly report of what you guys do, just so we can get an idea of what comes out of it? Just to give us an update of some sort?
I provide updates as necessary to the cabinet, and particularly when a lot of information was coming out about the dismantling of the Department of Education, the big beautiful bill, the infusion of $1.5 million to the Pell Grant, but I'll certainly leave that up to Dr. Namuo and Chairman Budzinski about how they'd like to move forward.
Well, it would just be great, because then, what you're sharing, then we would have more of an understanding of what you're sharing and what you guys are doing. It would be beneficial for us as the trustees to hear it. So that would be great if we could see it. And we appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
I have a comment.
Sure.
Thank you so much for this wonderful presentation, and also showcasing all the work that is being done at the state level in Springfield as well as the federal level, and some of the key initiatives that you all continue to work on alongside Kelly, of course, to make sure that it matches some of the key priorities that are really important to the college. So thank you for your role. Thank you for your presentation. And I look forward to getting additional updates, maybe not monthly, but maybe at least twice a year, that we're getting a little bit of additional information, just so that we were not adding additional burden to your agenda and everything that you all are doing. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
No, I was just going to say thank you for the thorough presentation. And I just want to be clear. The POD represents JJC. Is that correct? By saying that? Okay. I just want to be, all right. Well, thank you. Thank you
I
very
have no
much.
questions. I just want to say thank you for your thorough presentation, and it was a pleasure meeting both of you. And I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Trustee Bishop?
No questions, but thank you for your time.
Thank you for your service.
So David, in all your traveling, did you remain a Bears fan or did you change colors?
It's sliding. It depends who I'm in the room with. You know?
Politician.
Commanders then, is that what it's about?
Well, he went to U of I, so you're from Illinois, right?
I am.
Yeah.
Same colors.
For a reason.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
There will be no closed session for tonight, so we are going to move on to item number 5. The chair is requesting a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
Thank you.
We're adjourned 7:47.